Hi, welcome. My name is Holly Herrick. I'm head of film at Austin Film Society, and I'm here with the creators and cast of Bull. And would y'all mind going around and introducing yourselves?
Sure. I'm Annie Silverstein. Hi, everybody. I'm the writer-director.
I'm Monique Walton. I'm one of the producers.
I'm Amber Hubbard. I play Chris.
I'm Rob Morgan and I play Abe.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so honored to be able to talk with you today. This film touched me deeply for many reasons, and AFS had the pleasure of supporting the film in the early stages of development. So just really thrilled to see the movie get out there in the world. And one thing that I would love to hear more about is how the film was created of and out of a place. And I think it's a very different type of filmmaking than to create a script that maybe has some Hollywood convention and bringing it to a community. And this film is actually built out of a community and the real people who inhabit it. So I wanted to hear more about that type of filmmaking from Annie and Monique, and then got a lot more questions for the cast.
Sure. Right. So much of the world of the film is set in the Black rodeo world, and there was a really vibrant culture and history of Black cowboys in Texas, and we knew that in order to do that, we would need the community's involvement and collaboration, and so part of what that meant was that our kind of development and research phase was pretty long, I think, compared to most indies. We spent years forming these kind of partnerships. We made, the first contact we made was J.W. Wayne Rogers, and he's a bullfighter. And he invited us to watch him do his work, to bullfight at the old William Johnson Arena. And so we started going to these backyard rodeos there. And he introduced us to a lot of different bullfighters and Josky Jenkins, the owner of Old William Johnson, and it was kind of through these relationships and several years that we felt, okay, we would really like to shoot part of this movie right here. This is so specific to Texas. It's so specific to this history and culture, and we need the community's involvement, to be able to bring this to life. And so it was never really, it was always clear to us, to Monique and to Johnny and I, that because we wanted to reflect this very specific part of our American history, and this place that would be a part of it. Like, we couldn't shoot outside of Texas, and then the people who, for them, this is their way of life, had to be a part of making the film.
Monique, as the producer, how do you think the filmmaking being in and of that community was different versus had you been making a different type of film that wasn't so embedded?
I mean, I think the filmmaking, the process was so immersive just from like every aspect of planning it. So when we were putting it together, like Annie said, we knew that we wanted to make the film in Texas. We knew that we wanted it to be part of the community. We knew that we wanted to shoot in Houston. Even though we live in Austin, we felt like we wanted the film to be, of the place, of the community. And so when we were even looking in Houston, Houston's really massive. It's really spread out, but we found that the Acres Homes neighborhood, which is just north of central Houston, really worked for the film. And it also, within that community itself, that neighborhood, there was kind of a history of African Americans who were in the rodeo community. So in every aspect, we were always looking to find like the natural connections and the natural community. And then what ends up happening is that like people that we meet along the way become a part of the fabric of the film and become a part of the film, and collaborators and some people we would be able to hire to be in the film.
The film is in very delicately a pretty searing critique of America and the burden that America places on its citizens. And I think that is particularly true through the character of Abe Turner. So Rob, I wanted you to talk a little bit about how Abe understands himself, maybe as an American and as an individual, or how you thought about that social critique in the way that it related to your character.
Oh, wow. Hit me with the deep questions. Huh? Just come out with the heavy stuff. Rob, what is... Man, you know, I think, you know, I just want to piggyback off the simple question Monique and Annie got. I think it just speaks to the truthful authenticity we wanted to bring to the film by immersing ourselves in the community, because it's a certain language and certain attitude and certain spunk that Black cowboys have that you can't really imitate. You kind of got to go in there and get, and cowgirls too. You know, let's not forget the cowgirls also. And then also with Amber's crowd, the kids she was hanging with. You know, if you're not really immersed in that crowd, you're not going to get the details and the nuances that is true, that could ring out to them. So, you know, I applaud the filmmakers for like taking that extra step, for catching that authenticity. As far as my character relating to the struggles in America, I think it's just the everyday life of a Black man, having to basically pull himself up by his own bootstraps, even if he is lucky enough to have some boots to have straps to pull on. I think Abe's struggle and desire to want to maintain his position in the world of rodeo and bullfighting, with all the things he's already contributed to it, not wanting that to be looked over or forgotten or written out of the history. I think it's also synonymous to the Black man in America, for all the contributions and things that we've contributed, Black men and Black women actually, yet the pen will allow us to be written out. You know, so that's another reason why I was attracted to this movie, because the original cowboys and cowgirls were Black men and Black women. And that story is often grazed over, if not told at all, or imitated, like in situations of the Lone Ranger, or like in situations of other big Western heroes that we see, when they're imitations of actual Black men and women that walk this earth, you know, like Bass Reeves and the Buffalo Soldiers, and, you know, the cowboys and the cowgirls that was actually out there rustling up these animals and building this relationship of man and beast, you know, and how we kind of formulated to today to our film Bull, I think is a good representation of how much further we need to go, you know, and telling more of these kind of stories so that these voices can be heard and represented more clear. Did I answer that?
Oh, beautifully. And I, you know, what you were talking about in terms of embedding into the community, you know, you're in New York, you came down to Texas. Had you shot in Texas before? And was it, what was that like, being like, you've got to represent almost sort of an ethnography of place, you know, with this character, the study of the people that you were with?
Oh man, it was beautiful to come from my brownstone apartment in Brooklyn, New York City, to go straight to Houston, Texas, and get thrusted into this like bullfighting practice. I have on my Allen Edmonds hard bottom shoes, and we're stepping in like cow dung and mud instantly, fresh off the plane. You know, it was like a stark reality of you know, the differences of the city life and the country life, right? And I actually appreciated it so much because, you know, I have family that has roots in the South, so I spent some time in the South during the summer times, and I see the human integrity and morality that the kids get when they grow up being connected to the earth like that, and being connected to animals like that, and just their whole understanding of life. and how to navigate it. I think it sets that type of upbringing apart from a city upbringing. You know, it's two different worlds, but something about that being attached to the land down south, I think, is beautiful. So it really reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm. And so, Amber, this is a totally different story from yours. I understand that you were cast from your middle school in Elgin, Texas. And so you were portraying something that was a little closer to home. And I'm curious what building your character was like for you, being close to the age of the character that you're playing, being close geographically to where she was from. Can you talk about developing the character of Chris?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question, but I'm going to try to answer it the best that I can. Could you elaborate a little bit more for me?
Well, you can. I would actually just love to hear what it was like for you as coming new to acting and learning who this character Chris was through the script, Annie and Johnny's script, and what you then did to become Chris.
Well, it was a lot new. It was like really new to me because I never had any acting classes. So whenever they interviewed me, I just decided to give it a try. And to get into her character, I just kind of got in the headspace. I just thought like how she would be feeling in this moment, her situations. So I would just get in the headspace and feel those emotions that she was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Amber actually didn't read the whole script, you know, so a lot of what she knew was the situation. You know, she knew the character's situation and she knew what was happening in the scenes, but never read the script from page 1 to the end. You know.
How did you guys decide on that? Or is that have you worked that way always, Annie, or was that a method specifically for this project?
I've worked that way often with people who haven't acted before, because I feel like sometimes it can be kind of a burden if you haven't acted before to feel like there's all these lines you have to memorize, and it can take away from just like the simple conversation where you just can identify with someone's feelings or situation if you feel very attached to the script. And so I feel like Amber, I would show her actually the pages the morning of, and Amber has like an incredible memory, and so honestly she'd look at it once and then instantly know her dialogue. Was pretty weird. But yeah, we talked through, you know, there's some mature content in the film, and we definitely talked those scenes through and what would happen before I offered Amber the role, because I wanted to make sure that she felt, you know, comfortable with where the narrative was going to go. But yeah, she didn't read the script. Her mom did though. But did your mom ever share it with you? No, she didn't.
No, she never told me about it.
Were there, because of that method, Amber, were there days that you were surprised about what Chris was doing or saying? And do you have any memories of that happening and having to wrestle with it the day of? And
well, a little bit. There was this one scene that I was scared to do because I thought I was going to end up hurting myself. But when I did it, it turned out really good.
Do you remember which scene it was? Hopefully people will watch the movie by the time they watch our conversation.
Yeah. It was this scene where I'm supposed to bike into a river, like down this steep hill. And I thought I was going to fall, which I did the first time, but I didn't get hurt. So I was like, okay, let's do this again. And then we did it again and we got it in one take, which was really good.
Did you love the experience of working with a creative group like this? And is it something you would do again?
Oh yeah. This is something that I would definitely do again. I loved it.
It's such an amazing performance. In general, the performances in this film are so wonderful, and I'm just in awe of what you guys accomplished. And I did want Annie and Monique, if you guys could talk a little bit more about this film. You know, it premiered at Cannes. It won the top prizes at Deauville. Rob just won a special acting prize at South by Southwest. So the accolades are enormous for the movie, and yet it's a movie that is so specific to a place and a time. And I wonder if you could talk about sort of how that reception makes you feel, or how you sort of understand the movie appealing to audiences all over the world.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess that I think that, you know, it doesn't, as long as you're telling something really specific to the human condition, or something specific about human nature, connection, it doesn't really matter where in the world it's made. That's how I feel, you know? I mean, God, what was that film? I just watched Honeyland recently, and it's this beekeeper in Macedonia, and I was just like bawling, you know, because I just related. I felt so close to these people, and they're on the other side of the world. So it's like, I think storytelling has that ability that sometimes even I experience, the more specific something is as far as where it's set, the more almost broader appeal it can have. I think that's as best I can answer the question.
Did anything surprise you guys about the reception in France in particular, or internationally?
Let me think back.
I mean, it was amazing. You know, it was amazing to go to Cannes to be able to share the movie. It was kind of like a big whirlwind at the time. We finished the movie 3 days before we got on a plane, so we were, you know, really kind of, you know, just in it. But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience to kind of bring something that was so specific to Texas, you know, specific to a community out into the world. And a lot of people approached me and were saying they didn't even know that, you know, Black cowboys existed. You know, they didn't know that, and that's happened. Yeah, that happened in France. I went to Poland. That happened, you know, there as well. So I think that there was definitely, you know, people were seeing something they had never seen before.
Yeah, and it's an image, I think, that's, you know, carries through very strongly internationally, this sort of Western idea of both Texas and the West, and the U.S. is represented by this white cowboy. And so to reverse that, I think, is incredibly powerful. You know, it's wonderful to see the film get out there so much, and I hope it will continue to do so. So other than shooting in what I can only imagine was probably 100+ degree heat in the summer in Houston, anything else that you guys could say, or to Texas filmmakers or people about shooting in Texas? In general, Rob, maybe for you, since it was, I think, your first time shooting in Texas, and you having shot all over the world.
Yeah, you know, I loved it. You know, I loved the heat. I loved the scenery, the open space. I loved wearing the cowboy boots and Wranglers. I loved wearing the cowboy hat when I could. I loved it. I loved the connection to the bulls and learning how to ride a horse, and, you know, going down there, meeting beautiful people of all races and ages, defying class and color lines and age lines, like meeting a 55-year-old bull rider, you know, that's still riding and talking trash like he was 20-something years old. You know, that was like, you know, inspirational. Going down there, meeting Black men and women that own 2,000 acres of land, own 700 acres of land, own 1,200 acres of land, and casually tell you, like, yeah, I own 2,000 acres of land like it's nothing. You know, I think stories like that and experiences like that need to be told more and shared more, because it actually blew my mind, especially growing up as a Black man in America, and to understand how hard and how important it is to actually own land and hold on to it as a family, and 2,000 acres of it at that, and for them to look like me. You know, that was you never hear about stuff like that. You know, stuff like that is concealed from me because they don't want me to think that it's possible. you know. So yeah, this movie, man, you know, the experiences that of the friendships that I have made through shooting in Texas, it'll be with me for the rest of my life. I loved it.
I also think there's just, well, this is my first feature, so but the other fiction shorts I've only actually shot in Texas, so I don't really have anything to compare it to. But what I will say, I feel like there is such a generosity here among people in the films that I've made so far, whether it's people who are in the film community or not in the film community, to come together and create something. And that feels very culturally specific to Texas too. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist elsewhere. I'm just saying there's something special about it. I've really loved shooting here, and I've really loved like the kind of magic that comes out of the community, the relationships, the people, and how you could never even fathom how that would end up on screen, like when you're writing the script, you know, but it somehow does, because people, I mean, I remember we'd be like shooting a scene too, and just neighbors would pass by on horseback and start chatting with our PAs, and then suddenly they know somebody who has a ranch, and then that person would offer their livestock or something for a scene we had to shoot a couple weeks later, right? It felt so community oriented, I guess, the making of this film. And I have a background in community work, and so does Monique, and so in a way it just feels like really just bringing together a lot of the way we like to work, you know. So yeah, I'm pro Texas. Pro Texas shooting films. I love shooting here. I hope we can continue to do so.
I hope so.
Got to work on those incentives.
Yeah, indeed. So there are a lot of stunts in the movie. So before we say goodbye, I would love, Rob, for you to talk about how that worked.
Oh man, I'd love to shout out my stunt double, Wayne Rogers. Definitely, Wayne was a strength for me down there. He showed me how him and Teaspoon and Gerard Turner. But Wayne was like my main stunt double, and we just played tag, you know, the switcheroo, you know, up until it came time to roll on the dirt, tag, you know. But yeah, I was so excited to meet that brother, man. Great heart. If anybody down there in Texas is looking for some stunt work with dealing with any bulls or horses, please reach out to Wayne Rogers. He'll go above and beyond what you need. So yeah, I wanted to shout him out.
Awesome. Lots of, I mean, yeah, it's amazing the level of live rodeo work in this movie. So
yeah, and how close we got to the bulls actually, and you know, those are actually my favorite scenes. They'll tell you on set. My favorite scenes were the ones we couldn't control, were the ones we couldn't just stop and rewind and try to like manage to the T and all that. Nah, the favorite scenes I had was with the bulls, because it was like, look, you get what you get, and there's nothing realer than having a 3,000-pound bull chasing after you. You know what I mean? So yeah, those are my favorite scenes, those bull scenes. And being in the PBR, which actually, I think we made history, didn't we, Monique? Wasn't Wayne like the first black bullfighter to ever be in the ring?
To ever fight in the PBR, yeah, they never had a black bullfighter fighting.
Never had a black bullfighter in the PBR. Can you believe that? And we made history with this movie by getting my stunt double, Wayne Rogers, on the field in the PBR. And he showed off. He went above and beyond what those cats are out there to do, and made it look easy. Made it look real easy.
That's a great story. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for adding that.
Yeah, thank you.
Important detail. Important.
It's very important, because the movie's called Bull, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
You know, we making history with in that community also, and bringing a story. So
yeah,
May 1st, video on demand. Please come check us out. Tell a friend. Wear some cowboy boots if you want to in your house while you're quarantined watching it. and drink responsibly.
Thanks, Rob, Amber, Monique. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Holly.